Hi, my name is Merna Saleh, and for my Journal Club article, the title is Idarucizumab for Dabigatran Reversal. The main author is Pollack, and the funding was by Boehringer Ingelheim Pharmaceutical Company. A little bit of background. The specific reversal agents for non-vitamin K antagonist oral anticoagulants are lacking, so idarucizumab, an antibody fragment, was developed to reverse the anticoagulant effect of dabigatran. Methods of this study for the objective was to evaluate the reversal of the anticoagulant effects of dabigatran by IV administration of 5 grams of idarucizumab in patients treated with dabigatran who have uncontrolled bleeding or require emergency surgery or procedures. The trial design was ongoing multi-center prospective cohort study, and the location was 400 centers in 38 different countries. The study was IRB approved, and as for the inclusion criteria for Group A, who were the bleeding patients, their criteria was an overt bleeding judged by the physician to require a reversible agent, currently taking dabigatran, at least 18 years of age, and written informed consent. For Group B, their inclusion criteria included Group B were the patients who are taking dabigatran who may not be bleeding but do require an emergency surgery or procedure for a condition other than bleeding. And their criteria was condition requiring emergency surgery or invasive procedure where adequate homeostasis is required, hemostasis is required. Emergency is defined as within the following 8 hours. Current treatment with dabigatran, at least 18 years of age, and a written informed consent. As for the exclusion criteria for Group A, who are the bleeding patients, patients with minor bleeds who can be managed with standard supportive care, patients with no clinical signs of bleeding, contraindications to study medication, including known hypersensitivity to the drug or its excipients. As for Group B, their exclusion criteria included a surgery or procedure that is elective or where the risk of uncontrolled or unmanageable bleeding is low, or contraindications to study medication, including known hypersensitivity to the drug or its excipients. The subjects were Group A and B, who were bleeding patients, and then patients who are taking dabigatran who may not be bleeding but do require an emergency surgery or procedure for another condition other than bleeding. The primary endpoint was the maximum percentage reversal of the anticoagulant effect of dabigatran within 4 hours after the administration of idarucizumab on the basis of determination at a central lab of the dilute thrombin time or occurring clotting time. The secondary endpoint was the restoration of hemostasis. Follow-up time was at least a month or death, and then duration of the study was from May 2014, and the anticipated completion date was April 2017. The population is 90 of Plan 30. Group A is the major bleeding patients, is 51, and then Group B is 39. And then once again, Group A were patients with overt, uncontrollable, or life-threatening bleeding that was judged by a treating clinician to provide a reversible agent. And then B, patients who required a surgery or other invasive procedures that could not be delayed for at least 8 hours and for which normal hemostasis was required. As for the statistical analysis, the median maximum percentage reversal was 100% among 68 patients with an elevated dilute thrombin time and 81 with an elevated occurring clotting time at baseline. Idarucizumab normalized the test results in 88 to 98% of the patients, and this effect that was evident within minutes. In 79% of the patients, concentrations of unbound dabigatran remained below 20 nanograms per milliliter at 24 hours. As for the results, the primary endpoint was maximum percentage reversal of the anticoagulant effect of dabigatran as determined at any endpoint from the end of the first idarucizumab infusion to 4 hours after the second infusion, with the percentage reversal assessed on the basis of the measurement of the dilute thrombin time or occurring clotting time at a central lab. The secondary endpoint, the proportion of patients who had complete normalization of the dilute thrombin time or occurring clotting time in the first 4 hours, and the reduction in the concentration of unbound dabigatran. In Group A, the extent of bleeding and hemodynamic stability was assessed at 10 and 30 minutes, and at 1, 2, 4, and 12 and 24 hours after the second infusion or when deemed appropriate. The adverse events were death, because there were 18 deaths overall, with 9 in Group A and 9 in Group B, and then thrombotic events occurred in 5 patients overall. The author's conclusions include Idarucizumab completely reversed the anticoagulant effect of dabigatran within minutes in 88 to 98% of patients. I believe that the strength of this study were that it had a broad inclusion criteria and the demographics of the study population. It included patients with acute trauma and those that were expected to die within 3 days, and those that required surgery within 24 hours, as opposed to other few trials of anticoagulation reversal agents. However, the weaknesses of this study was the lack of a control group, and that was a limitation. A stronger study design could assess dabigatran-treated patients with prothrombin complex concentrate versus idarucizumab to determine the comparative efficacy of the antidotes. Small sample size and interim analysis. The average last dose of dabigatran was administered 15 hours prior to idarucizumab administration. The majority of the study population was taking 110 milligrams of dabigatran twice daily. Praxibind, or idarucizumab injection, is licensed and marketed by Boehringer Ingelheim Pharmaceuticals, Inc., which also is a sponsor and investigator for this drug. Pradaxa, or dabigatran, is licensed and marketed by Boehringer Ingelheim Pharmaceutical Company also. The summary of the primary literature. So the overall conclusion was this analysis included 90 patients who received idarucizumab, 51 in Group A and 39 in Group B. Among the 68 patients with an elevated dilute thrombin time and 81 with an elevated eccrine clotting time at baseline. The median maximum percentage reversal was 100%, with a 95% confidence interval. Idarucizumab normalized the test results in 88 to 98% of the patients, an effect that was evident within minutes. Concentrations of unbound dabigatran remained below 20 nanograms per milliliter at 24 hours in 79% of the patients. Among 35 patients in Group A who could be assessed, hemostasis, as determined by local investigators, was restored at a median of 11.4 hours. Among 36 patients in Group B who underwent a procedure, normal intraoperative hemostasis was reported in 33 patients. A mildly or moderately abnormal hemostasis was reported in 2 patients and 1 patient respectively. 1 thrombotic event occurred within 72 hours after idarucizumab administration in a patient in whom the anticoagulants had not been reinitiated. And finally, for the applications and conclusions. Idarucizumab is currently approved for patients taking dabigatran in need of reversal of the anticoagulant effects of dabigatran for emergency surgery or urgent procedures or in life-threatening or uncontrolled bleeding. The results of this trial appear to show that idarucizumab is the first humanized monoclonal antibody that is effective as an antidote to dabigatran. Idarucizumab completely reversed the anticoagulant effect of dabigatran within minutes. Although the interim data is very promising, a more solid conclusion will be available upon the formal completion of the trial. This study does not address if reversal of clotting measures improves mortality. And that concludes the study of idarucizumab for dabigatran reversal.